guys. I'm here to get to my 10 favorite scenes of Eyes Wide Shut, which was directed by Stanley Kubrick, released in the year 1999. First off, Christmas cheer just living in visually in this film. It's just remarks some of the greatest cinematography I've ever seen in a film. It's largely contributes to the ultimate natural sense of lighting throughout the whole film. And also Tom Cruise officially resonates with my all-time favorite Stanley Kubrick character. This obsession really started like quite around when I was about 20, and it's just fully evolves with age, honestly. So. One of my favorite scenes, the opening scene of introducing Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman as they go to this big party that is hosted by Sidney Pollack, and it's mesmerizing all throughout the display of dreamy cinematography. It just kind of feels like a perfect kind of party atmosphere. The lighting is just organic, much like how Barry Lyndon displays its sense of naturalism with its own original kind of senses. Every frame manages to have some Christmas lighting in it, and the characterization starts to get very off between Cruise and Kidman, as they get mixed in with other people. And it's just very subtle, very just hypnotizing the way this is displayed ultimately. There's a dreamy, very comforting, inviting way that this is filmed to an original extent. It seems like Kubrick was on to. And then the entire argument sequence, that just holds up as some of the greatest lighting is about the whole film really does. I think it's just this whole thing is a mesmerizing display of lighting. There's a bright lighting in the room in contrast to the dark blue in the bathroom background. And it's just the way that this entire conversation unfolds. It reveals some of the most raw characterization as this ultimately sets the catalyst. And Kidman basically sets the catalyst in Cruise's mind, which embarks on moving forward here. And then the whole film is just breezy and relaxing to the original extent within Kubrick's filmography. It feels like perhaps the most subtle film he made. Like he's always been a real subtle artist, and here it's just I feel like he's probably at his most personal, every sense of the word, getting across everything. There's like all these scenes of this Cruise meeting with all these other characters like Vanessa Shaw, and just wonderful display, very slow paced, and I think it's personal because it's just like this is set in New York City where Kubrick grew up. It's just his home city, and then he filmed it where he primarily developed his filmography. So there's just Christmas lighting again everywhere. The whole scene where Cruise meets with Todd Field at a bar displays again some of the greatest, most colorful lighting I've ever seen. And this is a mesmerizing display as Cruise is past the point of return practically in what he's after here. And this is just some of the greatest display of natural lighting I've ever seen. There's the part where Cruise goes to the Rainbow Store, which is hosted by Rain Sirbadzilla. And this is just mesmerizing display all throughout as Cruise is just, again, increasingly past the point of return. It's just very fascinating seeing how these scenes unfold. And again, you get it with the night scenes happening first in contrast to the daylight scenes, which happen in the third act of the film. It's a really fascinating contrast. And be introduced to all these characters at night, and then you get about everybody once again in the daytime. And you got like Leslie Sobieski, who's just completely portrayed as just being involved in something that feels completely off in every sense of the word. That's kind of the way this whole atmosphere feels in the story. Something just feels completely offbeat, but it's impossible to define it exactly. And then just the entire sequence of the cold unfolding remains just some of the most disturbing imagery I've ever seen. This whole sequence is just so frighteningly close up. The way that Cruise gets involved in this cult, which commits all kinds of unfathomable and unspeakable acts generally, it's enough to just timelessly disturb the mind, as everything's implied, but nothing's really revealed of what goes on here. And that just kind of makes everything feel very subtle and just representing something of an overwhelming dark force and in motion. Cruise has really stumbled upon something genuinely dangerous is the way this feels. And this is a very fresh shade of Cruise's. These long takes are just some of the most powerful in Kubrick's entire filmography. I would say going into this, it turns out to haunt me, I'd say, just right on that same level as The Shining, which is Kubrick in full on horror, that's really saying something. This is a very original tone, and everything's just feeling distinctively off in this whole sequence. And as Kubrick just increasingly embarks into the unknown territory, which is just timelessly haunting to behold. This Mask appears differently, and there's just a haunting aesthetic which just timelessly disturbs here. And you get the scene of Kubrick walking back into his house, and there's just all this blue lighting. He just ends up telling Kidman all about his fears and insecurities that he faced here in this whole scenario. This is just builds up to a wonderfully fleshed out conversation, which just feels like entirely a more dreamy and it's like first Kidman was working up, now it's like Cruise is in the worked up position, and Kidman's it's just fascinating. And then you see where Cruise meets with Alan Cumming, which holds up as a mesmerizing cameo. This whole sequence is very influential as I've worked in hotels, and I just looked up to like a lot of the social skills, and this whole film in general really influenced. I think that all the way. That's how Cruise's charisma is too. But Alan Cumming here is also fantastic. And the entire meltdown as Cruise finds the mask on his bed after his encounter with Sidney Pollack. That's just mesmerizing framing all around. Just again, the way everything's shot and the whole ending sequence. It just kind of ends up just concluding this whole project on such a quiet note. It ends up feeling soft as a lullaby, gentle, ultimately, the way that It gets across something that just feels very off, warped, and distorted in every sense of the word. But Kubrick just has this completely down to earth way of expressing that. And this whole project is just absolutely mesmerizing from start to finish.